At Rob's Garage, we're going to show you how to save some money by doing your own oil change on an L494 Range Rover Sport. Welcome back to Rob's Garage. I'm Rob, this is the garage. On my last Range Rover video, I wore an English cap to represent the British make. However, some friends of mine reminded me that Tata, an Indian company, actually is the parent now of Land Rover. So to represent and show love to my Indian colleagues, I am wearing my turban and sash that I picked up on my last trip to India. The procedure I'm about to show you will apply to any 2013 through early 2022 Range Rover Sport, the L494 model. But keep in mind that the oil volume may be slightly different because this is the 5.0 liter V8 supercharged engine from Jaguar, the AJ133 engine. I have been changing the oil in this thing since brand new, and I've almost got 100,000 miles on it. It's a 2016, and religiously I change the oil every 7,500 miles. Now I know that the manufacturer, the computer will tell you it's like 15,000, but all the Land Rover mechanics I've talked to said, time out, do not follow that protocol. If you follow that schedule, you'll have premature engine failure. I have changed the oil every 7,500 miles, and I will share my Blackstone oil analysis report at the end of the video, and you will see that the results of my engine wear are better than normal.
Hi, could I get a quote for an oil change?
This is a Range Rover Sport.
Yeah.
2016. You'd be looking at about $3 to $325.
I've been running Castrol Edge, but I switched to liquid moly a while ago. Can you get liquid moly?
So we use what Range Rover sends us. It's Range Rover oil specifically designed for these vehicles.
Okay, 300 to 325.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do-it-yourselfers and money savers, here we go. These are the tools and the supplies you're going to need. I always like to use some rubber gloves and paper towels because changing oil can get a little messy. For supplies, I purchased 2 5-liter bottles of liquid moly, synthetic 0W20, specially formulated for this engine. In addition, I purchased this oil filter. It's a cartridge type. Goes up on top of the engine. We'll show you how momentarily. And in the box, you'll have a new oil filter with the new O-rings already installed. Now, some of the oil filters that I've used in the past did not have those O-rings already installed. You had to put them on yourself. As well as a gasket for the oil filter cap. Those are the parts you're going to need. How much did I spend? $150 from rockauto.com. That included shipping. One piece that is missing here is a new drain plug. I traditionally extract the oil from the top of the motor using a hand pump, but periodically it's good to drain the oil from the bottom and inspect the undercarriage of the car. So that's what we're going to do today. In terms of tools, you want to make sure you've got a really deep oil pan. You're going to be taking out 8 to 9 quarts of oil. So make sure you've got something that's really tall, really deep, so I can get all that oil. Don't get caught short with a small oil pan. You know, it overfills and you got oil everywhere. You're going to need to have an oil filter wrench. You can use a universal job, but I have found it's just easier to get the proper oil filter wrench. This is a 90 millimeter 15 flute, which means it's got 15 of these little grooves here, specifically made for this type of oil filter cap that we'll get to soon. And I use a little extension to make the job a little easier to get to. You're going to use a 15 millimeter socket to loosen the belly pan from underneath. I like to use a drill. It makes it a lot easier. And you'll also need a 13 millimeter socket in order to loosen the drain plug. And finally, I recommend using a torque wrench to properly torque both the oil drain plug and the oil filter cap. It also helps if you got a set of jack stands, and I'll show you why here. Just get your engine running. Put the suspension in off-road height. Off-road height selected. Get your jack stand here. Position it under the jacking point like so. Make sure you got one on each side. What we're going to do is lower the car down onto the jacks, and then it will extend it higher to extended mode. Let's go down. Car says normal height selected. Suspension in extended mode. It's going up. A little higher here. Now it's in extended mode. What I do is I put it in neutral. Okay, and then you're going to select. Yeah. Now we're going to put it in low gear. There we go. And you put it back into park. By doing that, it is locking it in extended mode, so it should not go down on us. But I keep the jack stands below just in case. And that, my internet friends, is the maximum height that you can raise your Range Rover Sport using the air suspension system. Okay, we are coming underneath the front of the vehicle here. And this is what I feel is the most grueling part of this entire job. If you drain the oil below, you need to remove the belly pan, which requires, I think it's about 18 of these 15mm bolts. You'll find them practically everywhere. Now, if you've never removed it before and it's still factory torqued, you may need a breaker bar. I don't torque it as tight as the factory, so I think, let's see here, yeah. I just use a socket here, get it started, and then take my drill, moving the rest of the way. Right, so I exaggerated a little. There's only 11 bolts, not 18. Just seemed like a lot more. And then I usually save the one here in the middle for last because it holds up the belly pan. There we go. Drop that. Check your belly pan. Look for any leaks, anything that looks suspicious that you'll need to investigate up above. This looks pretty clean. I think we're good. Let's drain the oil. Here is our drain plug. I already broke it slightly loose, so this will look a lot easier on camera than it really was. Okay, got that started. I'm going to warn you, this thing will make a huge mess. When it spews out, it wants to shoot out this way. So I'm going to hold this back here. Try to let it drain a little bit out. Now, you want to make sure your engine has been warmed, but that the engine oil is not hot. Because if you got hot oil coming out, you're going to burn yourself, and I have done it before. There we go. Let that drain a bit. Now this, my friends, is why you need those paper towels. See, I got a little bit of a spill here. Not too bad for trying to do it one-handed, but you know, ideally, if you have two hands available, you won't make a mess like this if you hold that pan up as you do the final removal of the bolt. And while that's draining, let's go remove the oil filter. Pop that off here. Set it aside. Here's your oil filter housing. Okay, there we go. Pop that thing off. Be careful not to drip oil as you take this out. Kind of shake it a bit. Oil will start draining from the bottom as you release the vacuum. And I'll pull it and we'll flip it really quick. There you go. And I'm adamant about getting out as much oil as possible. This just kind of soaks it up for me. Right. It can be kind of messy, hence the gloves. Boy, that bad boy's on there tight. And had I extracted the oil the way I normally do, I would have used the tube that's in there. I will make a different oil change video to show you how to do that. Let's get the old filter out of here. You just pull it right out. Just try to get it all out as best I can. Again, be careful not to rip your paper towel off, because you don't want any contaminants getting in your engine. Put the new filter in. It's quite simple. You see these little tabs. Right? Little tabs here. They're going to push in either on this tab and this tab, or that one and that one. Okay, there's two different ways you can. Either way, it was fine. You just want to make sure. And there's these little grooves here that you'll see match up inside the oil filter cap. So you just kind of line those grooves up, and you're going to give it a good push. Make sure it's nice and tight in there. You may need a flathead screwdriver to take off the old O-ring here. Sometimes I don't need it, but it makes it a little quicker. You can do it by hand. It's just a little tight. Pop that thing off. Now for our new O-rings, including this one down here, you're going to want to put a little oil on. So what I do is I get the new filter cap O-ring out. Oil. I just put on my hands here. Just my fingers, just enough. You're going to wipe it on the whole thing. This helps give a good seal. That there. Make sure you put it in the correct spot. Don't have it resting on the threads. Okay, it's right here. You're gonna need to go into and make sure it's nice and it's seated nice and properly. Okay, and then take a little bit of oil and rub it on the O-rings up top. Put the oil filter back in. Make sure the threads are not crossed, so go slow. Right on the cap of the oil filter, it says torque to 25 Newton meters. Well, because I was an idiot and tried to remove the drain plug with one hand, I had to go fishing for it in our drain pan. But here it is, and this is why you need to replace them every so often. Ideally, every other oil change is what I'm told. There's an integrated O-ring or gasket right there. So I think I've only got one oil change on this one. It's been a while since I've drained it from below. So we're going to try and use it a second time, but I would highly recommend changing it every other oil change, if not every oil change. Then you're going to torque this 13 millimeter bolt and the 17 foot-pounds of torque. Okay. One of the benefits of using an oil pan like this, you're able to measure how much oil actually came out. Let's fill this oil up. Got our funnel there. Make sure your oil drain plug is nice and secure before you add oil, or you will have new oil flushing out the bottom. Now, newer vehicles without dipsticks, this is always the scariest part for me because you don't want to start an engine with not enough oil in it. So what I do with this car, I turn the power on, hood open, yes, I know. We're going to check the oil level. Engine has to be off, and you get to the vehicle information menu. Go down to oil level. Says okay, so it gives me some reassurance. And of course, since we measured how much oil was taken out, measured how much was put in, shouldn't be that risky, but I always like to check to make sure. Now, one other thing you can do here, with the hood open and the driver door open, you should be able to reset your service. Now, usually I use a scanner to do this. What we're going to do is turn the ignition on, and then both pedals will be depressed in just a minute. Ready? Don't turn the engine on, just hold it. Hold both pedals down. It takes about a minute. Then it should reset your service light if you had one. Now, since I change the oil at much more frequent intervals than the computer calls for, I don't get the service light. But we're going to sit here for a minute and see if it resets. At least resets the count. After holding both pedals down for over a minute, I didn't receive any indicators on the dash. So I went back here to the vehicle information menu, went and looked at next service, and it says oil service in 16,150 miles. So appears that it's been reset now. The very last thing I do before reinstalling the engine cover and the belly pan is I turn the motor on now that we feel comfortable that it's got adequate level of oil, and we're going to inspect for leaks. Specifically, we're going to look around the oil filter housing and around the drain plugs. Oil filter housing looks good. Looks clean. Once you're confident you have no leaks underneath, you can reinstall the belly pan down below here. I take each of the 11 15 millimeter bolts and just kind of loosely put them in place, make sure everything is lined up, because sometimes you might torque one down and and it doesn't quite fit on another one. So just loosely fit all of them, and then take your drill, tighten them down, and then I use a ratchet to torque it by hand. I don't really know what the torque spec is, but as long as it's tight with a ratchet, it should be good. Final step is to remove our jack stands and lower the vehicle. Shift it back into neutral position. Keep your foot on the brake. Very important. Keep your foot on the brake. Turn off the parking sensor if it's annoying you. And then we will push it back down. This is going to first go to off-road height, normal height, access height, and then we can take it out of low gear. This is high range.
As promised earlier, here is a copy of my most recent Blackstone oil analysis report from 2 oil changes ago. And as you look at these values, you can see why I testify that changing the oil every 7,500 miles is so important. You can see my values are better than average.
Well, that's a wrap from Robb's Garage. I hope this is going to save you a little bit of money. I know it sure has for me over the years. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and do yourself a favor, subscribe to the channel. You'll be able to follow along with more do-it-yourself videos on Range Rovers, Ferraris, Corvettes, BMWs, Mini Coopers, Yamaha and Suzuki motorcycles, and hey, you can follow along with some of my track day fun and see how I do in this season. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you on down the road.